Hello, retail traders. This is Friday. It is 3:41. We're almost got 19 minutes into close, and I want to do this little preparation watch list for next week of things that I'm going to be looking at. Now, I've got three things on my brain right now that I'm thinking about next week. I'm thinking about the POW'S speech on Wednesday. I'm thinking about the interest rate. Are we going to have 5%, 5 basis points, or is it going to be 0.75? That's the question. We keep hearing 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. So I'm going to come in here Monday, and I want to see if we're going to have a red day. I'm going to come in here Tuesday, and if it's going to be another red day. And then Wednesday, I want to see if we're going to be opening up flat. We're going to have quad witching. That's number 2 on my list. That's where we're going to have a lot of turnover, a lot of volatility. People are going to be selling out of their expirations. Then we've got the CPI numbers coming out, which is a major catalyst for the market to either go up and down. In my heart, I feel like we're in kind of a soft landing, although I don't know what that means. I think we've had a hard landing all year long with the pullback. I think we did find a bottom, and we did bounce up and correct off of it. So I'm going to look at 4 indices. We're going to look at the 20-day chart. We're going to look at the yearly. SPY right now is dipping on down. I was going to play the lotto play here, and I decided not to do it. Now, if I'd played the put, that's probably at 0 right now. So we're going to go ahead and, this is the VWAP chart. I'm going to pull up a different chart. Boeing's definitely on my list. It's flagging out right now. And I'll show you what I like about Boeing a little bit later. But here's the SPY. We're going to look at the yearly. I'm going to clean this whole chart up. And I'm going to show you exactly where we are. We had a great week. We've had a great rebound from the bottom. We called this out in the room. We said this stock could probably run up to the 200 SMA like it did here and like it did right in here. So we've had a triple top at the 200 SMA, and it broke out above that 200 SMA. I've been playing off this here Darvis box for the longest of time, this one right here, for almost a half a year. And I'm still going to play off of it. So I'm going to draw me a box all the way across. This is going to be like my major support area. I know it sounds goofy. No one else is talking about it, but only me. So that's my support level. Now, if you noticed, we've stayed above that Darvis box for the last month and a half. Now, if we get down in this Darvis box, we'll run into that 50 SMA for a support level if it starts to get bad next week. If not, we'll definitely hold support off this here second crow, which is the top of this Darvis box, where we've pulled down right here, 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 and we're almost right there again. So that's definitely my solid support. I'm going to draw a trend line right across it, and I'm going to keep that Darvis box in mind. Now, people in the room's been calling this here trend line that comes down, and I've actually got 2 or 3 of them, but we're going to start from the very beginning of the year. We're going to draw a trend line all the way down to it. That's my second strategy. We're going to take it to the body of that candle right there and hit that body right there. I'm going to extend it to the right. So if you look at it, we've bounced off that trend line every time. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's our resistance. That's where we're going to take it to. So if we pull back and we hit this support, and the support level now is the 51 EMA, and it's also the 65 EMA. Each one of them are touching each other. So that's another reason why that could be a solid support there at 390. So I'm going to draw a trend line right across that 390. That's going to be our support level. And I'm going to use it off these candles to make sure that I'm solid about it. And I'm going to use this one right here because that meets up with that one right there. So no lower. I don't want this stock to go no lower than 390.92, and I've said that over and over and over and over. We have another support right up in here, and that's right about in that area right there where all that consistency is. That's at 395.14. So we backed down, we hit the 390.32. We're still bullish in this trade. If it drops down below that, that's holding up the 65 and the 51 EMA. So if it drops down and hits the 50, that's going to be our second support. Now that's the pivot point inside of this here Darvis box. So we're going to go back to the Darvis box that we have back here that we've been playing off of, and that support level's right in here, somewhere where I'm looking for an equilibrium, where a lot of these bodies and these candles meet up. That's no lower than 381. Let's see if that touches anything. So that's pretty close to that 51 right now. So if we pull back a little bit, this 51 could pull back a little bit and hit that pivot point area inside of that Darvis box. That's your second. Then if it gets real nasty, your third one's down here, which I cannot see happening. So basically we want to try to hold the 50 and the 51 next week and run it back up to the trend line, which we've already indicated that Mike's pulled out in the room many a times and showed us. We bounced right off of it. We bounced right off of it. We bounced right off of it. And that was a good indicator to be buying puts. So that's it. That's it on the SPY. We want to hold that 390 area next week. If we go below that, then we have to dig inside of this Darvis box and aim for another $9 down. The IWM. Right now on the IWM, this one here was one of the best trades of all out of the indices. It held the best. Now we're pulled back to the 50 SMA, which I like that. If we can hold that 50 SMA, that'll be great. The top of that other Darvis box is right here, so that's where we're going to clean this chart up. They're all acting the same, if you notice. So we're going to run a box right through here. And I've been trading off this box and making a killing. We did it right in here. We did it right in here. And we can pull back to it again. So we're going to draw that trend line all the way across from the top of that box. And I want to try to match it up with some of these other candles in here. That's definitely the resistance level right there. Right at 176.98. And I'm going to color this in, and I'm going to put the bottom trend line down here at the bottom of the box, which is right about smack down there. Now this one's been kind of a decent runner. It's done the same thing. It ran up to the 200 SMA and gave up. It's a little bit more volatile. So we're going to draw a trend line from right here all the way to that one right there. Put that right smack right there. Extend that out to the right. So we got 3 black crows right here. She bounced up off of it. Then we had the double bottom down here at 164. I cannot see it going down that far at all. So we think we're safe from there. So as of now, we're bouncing off the 50. We broke all the other moving averages. We hit that trend line, and she went down below that. The 9's crossing the 21, and you've got the 50, the only thing holding this thing up. So this week, we could have a possibility of bouncing, this coming week, bouncing off that 50. If not, we need to hold that Darvis box top at 176.08. Now if that doesn't hold, there's a pivot point area, and it's going to be on the body of this candle right here on the 3rd crow. So we're going to draw that line right there, and we're going to mark it red. I'm going to take this to the right. A lot of gap in here, not much area. A lot of that concentration's been above that Darvis box. So let's see if we can hold the 177 next week. If we can hold that and run this back up to the 200, that'll be a great idea. If not, she's definitely going to pull back to the pivot point in that box at 172.27 and no lower. Now that's only $6. That's on the IWM. So we've had a good sell-off. We've had a good sell-off. Fat cats have been talking about the 5-day sell-off. And then we had this big doji right here where we should have probably ended up going up. But with all what's going on next week, that's the catalyst for a little bit more volatility. And I can see us hitting that 177 and holding that. If we don't hold it, then we're definitely going to drop down to 173.27. The QQQ has been running very well when it was the worst of all. So we're going to look at it. People have been talking about this here a lot because it's been the worst stock of them all. We're going to clear it up. I'm going to take this off so we can get a bigger picture of it. What I'm using is a TTM squeeze chart with the Fibonacci set up, and it's at the link in the bottom of the content and the video. If you want to go ahead and add on, I think you just need to add the 65 and maybe the 51 EMA. So this one here has been a very good running stock, and it's traded a Darvis box for the last month and a half. And that pivot point area, we're going to draw that out right in here, is right down here. I'm going to draw this Darvis box out. So I'm looking at it totally different than I've looked at the other two. I'm going to color that box in. Been a sideways pattern from right there all the way to the bottom of right here. Big gaps in between. Big long candle here on POW'S speech. We had the long leg doji, and I point this out every day in the room as a sell-off ticker, sell-off candle, and that's what we did. We sold off to the bottom of that box. So we want that box to hold. That's support. If not, we'll drop down to the 50 SMA. That bottom candle is right here on this last one we had right here. So we're going to draw a trend line across that. That's going to be your solid support for next week. 275.92. We want that to hold. We want it to hold the 50 SMA and then get back up into this box and find a pivot point. That pivot point in this box is right here at 287.57, and the bottom of the box is going to be right in here at 280.30. So you got two support levels. Anything below it, no lower, and I repeat, no lower than this right here at 272.08, the bottom of this here big candle. We want that to hold. But this one here has been running very well inside of the box for the last month and a half, and I'd keep a good eye that we've pulled back to that support. And this could be all counted in for the POW'S speech coming up, and this could run back up to the top of the box. So just remember that the resistance for next week is going to be 290.277 if it does go long. The pivot point, like I said, is going to be that red line right here that we're going to color in red. And that's at 287.57. So that's only $5 up and $5 down. $5 up, $5 down. So we're at an equilibrium, but we're also harvesting down here at the bottom of that Darvis box. I don't think we can run back up here yet, but this one here has been by far one of the best runners of the trade, and that's the QQQ. And it's usually the least talked about. Everybody makes big money on the SPX. This is the catalyst of all of them. So we're going to clean her up. And we're going to look at it. You got the three black crows. You got the Darvis box right here. And that resistance line on top of that Darvis box is right at 39.11. That runs right into the 65 and the 51 EMA like it did on the SPY. You've got Equilibrium, a pullback right here, it run up and hit the 200. You had a resistance right here. This is called a pivot point. This is called a pivot point on the chart, on the SPX. A pivot point is a description of which way the stock wants to go. If it wants to hold support and run up and stay in resistance, or if it wants to pull back and find support. The low part of that support is going to be the bottom of this here Darvas box. And that lands right here at 377886. A little bit above it maybe, a little bit higher maybe at 3. Let's raise it up just a little bit. Well, we'll leave it like it is. But this area right around that 3778, give it $10-15, maybe right around the 3800. That's where you want that baby to hold if we do pull back. But right now we got a strong support holding up at the 65 and the 51. If that doesn't hold, it'll equal to the pivot point inside of the Darvas box, which runs right into the 50. So we're going to mark that red. We don't want this stock to go any lower than that red line, if that's the kind of week we're going to have. But so far, if we hold the support level on top of this Darvas box at 3911.77, we'll run back up and start filling this up again and hit that 200 SMA. So keep a good eye on all 4 of them. Go back and watch that. The stocks that I'm going to be watching for next week is going to be Boeing. This has been one of my best trades of all. I called this thing down here at 120, 122, and it's done nothing but run straight up. I love this stock, I love the trade, and I love what it's doing. We've been in a Darvas box for the last month and a half, and we finally broke out of it. So keep it, for the last 3 weeks, and we finally broke out of that. So I'd really like to see it hold that box. And that bottom of that box is going to be this bottom candle, no lower than 167. That's what we want to hold if it does pull back. We do have 2 bear candles right here, but I think it's just consolidated off the big run that it's had in the past 3 days, past week. We had that doji and it bounced up off that doji. So this thing pulls back and finds a solid support at 171.68. We're still bullish in the trade, and we can run it back up to the top of the box and fill this here. Been getting a lot of orders. The airlines are booming. There's just a lot of good things that's happening right now with Boeing. It's got a bunch of contracts for the military this week. It's just a lot of good things going on right now. So the solid support has to carry no lower than that 171.68. Now Tesla's the most beat up stock, most talked about, most bash stock out there. Fat cats do not like Tesla, but then there's a quarter of them that do love it, that say it's at a strong buy. It's dropped 50% from the high. So if we hold support, and that's going to be here on the 3-year chart. If you look at the 3-year, we have the 200 SMA. As long as we hold that 200 SMA, we're still game to scalp this back and forth and run this back up a little bit. The solid support below that 200 is going to be this here ascending triangle, and I'm going to draw a trend line right across. I don't want this stock to go any lower than this, or 150, or hell's going to break loose. But if we hold that weekly chart, that 200 SMA that we've been bouncing off for a month, we can still do it. So if it gets close down there to 170, we called this 170 out the other day, and look what happened. Look what happened. So keep that 170 in mind. If this thing, because they will not let off, and I'm personally got a vendetta against some of these people, the way they talk about my buddy Elon. But I'm fighting, Wall Street, and they're 99% liberal. So if this thing pulls back to that 170 again, I'll probably load the boat and try to run it back up. Progressive liberals, that is. So Tesla's going to definitely be on our hot watch list. Now China's talking about restricting. This gets me about China. China's talking about letting off on the COVID-19, and then we come out, America comes out here and sanctions China again. That nothing makes sense about these idiots. So Baba is one of the ones that we watch. Baba and Netflix. I want to look at Netflix too. Netflix had a good upgrade today, but Baba's very volatile. So we're going to look at the 20-day and the 20-day only. We're going to look for a pivot point inside of this here 20-day chart. And that's going to be right here, somewhere around this 200 SMA. A little bit lower, but it's very volatile. So if we don't hold to 65, we'll drop down here to right around 85 bucks. And that's going to be the pivot point on the chart. And I'm going to draw a trend line right there. The next support is going to be no lower than this here 78.73. So if we get a knife on this and it drops down to 85, I'll probably be scalping this back up, trying to keep it up in this upward trend that we've had. We've definitely had an upward vertical climb, and it's pulled back to that support. Excuse me, I'm going to cry. So it's kind of hard to say. I'm going to say it's going to be right about in here. Just like that. That vertical climb right there. So it can pull back to your first support at 88.66, or it can run back here and hit that 200 SMA that bounces off the pivot point on the chart. So we want to try to hold that. If not, it collapses, then we look at 78 for a strong buy. Now, Baba, and then you've got the autos, the NIOs. NIO can pull back and also hit that 200, which is a pivot point on the 20-day at 12 bucks. Anything below that, it's going to be harmful to the stock. I'm not saying jump in it now. We're going to wait till next week and see what happens. Then we've got LI. LI just had earnings. They had a little good outlook, but the earnings were kind of shy. So we pulled back on this one too. So the low support on the 20-day is going to be right in here between the gap, where we had that gap up. So that maybe it can hold right there at that price line right around 1944. So we'll keep a good eye on China and just see how it goes. We'll know by the whistle of the fat cats how they're talking about it. They've been talking about opening up, and that it could be a good investment, but their economy is not that great. Netflix had a huge upgrade today. NFLX, that's on our watch list. This thing, they got a target to $400, but we don't want to take their word for it. We want to see if we can hold the pivot point on this chart. We're going to look at the yearly. There's a lot of good things that happened this week, and I want to mention a couple other ones, but that lower support of this here box is what we want to look for, and that's right around 305. If this thing pulls back 15 bucks and drops below all these moving averages, I think we can hold that 200 SMA right around that 305 area and hold that Darvis box up. The bottom of that candle runs almost right into that 200 SMA. And that's going to be your first support right here. But this has had a huge upgrade to $400 today, but I want to see it pull back some and then take it and run it back up. Sava was a great trade called out by one of our pioneers in the room. He had this nailed to T, to a penny, called it out down here, and it ran up 3 days in a row. It also had great news come out on it about the Alzheimer's disease. So this could be a good catalyst. It needs to pull back almost, but the resistance is going to be up here around 43.48. So we want the same thing. I'm going to be using this pivot point area off the 200 SMA all the way across. So we got 34.66. And that's going to be what we're going to be looking at right there. So all in all, we got 3 things we're going to be watching for next week. and that's going to be POW'S speech about the interest rates. There's going to be a lot of volatility with the quad witching. So if you're up in a trade, be sure to take profit. It's going to be a setup for the Santa rally after next week, after the quad witching week is done. Could be a pre-cert to the Santa rally when everything knows where everybody's had their portfolio switched around. And then we got the CPI numbers that are going to come out, which we don't know if they're going to be favorable. Probably not. All I'm hearing from the CEOs is recession, 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 and layoffs into 2023. Now, through my experience, the first couple of months of the year have always been good, except for this year that we just had. So keep that in mind. After the last quad witching Santa Claus rally, the first coming up the year when all the portfolios are lined up to the way they think they're going to call out the next year, that's what we're going to be looking at. And I want to have everybody have a great week, and we'll definitely see you Monday morning, retail traders.